Welcome to episode 14, Practice Test Questions, from part 1 of Australian Citizenship, Our Common Bond. Before viewing the practice test questions in this video, it's a good idea to review part 1 of the study booklet, Australia and Its People. It covers topics such as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the early days of European settlement, the nation of Australia from Federation to post-war times to the modern day, and Australia's states and territories, as well as Australian traditions such as the Welcome to Country and Acknowledgement of Country protocols. Important days for Australians, such as Australia Day and Anzac Day. Australia's flags. Australia's symbols and the national anthem. And remember, Our Common Bond is available in 40 community languages. Check to see if your language is on the list. English language learners I've worked with have said that they've found it helpful to print a copy of Our Common Bond in English as well as their own language for study. And remember, the videos on this channel have subtitles in 35 languages as well. The videos were made to help you get a better understanding of the text in Our Common Bond. They use pictures, vocabulary tips, and stories to make things easier to follow. If you haven't seen the other videos yet, take a look. Okay, let's get started on the test questions for part 1. Question 1. Who are Australia's first inhabitants? A. The Dutch. B. The British and Irish settlers. C. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We can see that page 8 in Our Common Bond says, Australia's first inhabitants are the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So the answer to this question is C. Australia's first inhabitants are the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Question 2. Torres Strait Islander people are from A. Islands between the Australian mainland and Tasmania. B. Islands between the northern tip of Queensland and Papua New Guinea. C. Islands between Australia and New Zealand. Page 8 in Our Common Bond says, Torres Strait Islander people are from islands between the northern tip of Queensland and Papua New Guinea. So the answer is B. Torres Strait Islander people are from the islands between the northern tip of Queensland and Papua New Guinea. Question 3. Who was the British explorer that established the first European settlement in Australia? A. Bennelong, B. Captain Cook, or C. Captain Arthur Phillip? A. Bennelong was an Aboriginal man who was curious about the British invaders and became friendly with them. So we know that A is not the answer because Bennelong was not a British explorer. B. Captain Cook. In 1770, Captain James Cook and his crew landed at Botany Bay near Sydney. The crew stayed in the area for 8 days. It wasn't until 18 years later that the first fleet came to Australia in 1788. So even though Captain Cook was the first European to land in Australia, the question is asking who established the first European settlement. Since Captain Cook did not stay to live in Australia, we know that B is not the answer. C. Captain Arthur Phillip. Captain Arthur Phillip was the commander of the first fleet of 11 ships that sailed into Botany Bay, New South Wales in January 1788. 3 days later, he chose a site at nearby Sydney Cove in Port Jackson, and on the 26th of January began to establish a convict settlement. So the answer to this question is C. The British explorer that established the first European settlement in Australia was Captain Arthur Phillip. The information for this question is found on page 8 in Our Common Bond. Question 4. The first fleet, A, consisted of 11 ships, B, arrived from Great Britain on the 26th of January 1788, C, both answers A and B are correct. Page 8 in Our Common Bond says, European settlement started when the first 11 convict ships, which became known as the First Fleet, arrived from Great Britain on the 26th of January 1788. Since the information in answers A and B are true, we need to choose answer C. Both answers A and B are correct. Be careful with this type of question. If you don't read the question and each possible answer carefully, it's very easy to make a mistake here. Question 5. Which statement does not describe the gold rush in colonial Australia? A. The gold rush began in 1851. B. Chinese people were the first non-European migrants to arrive in Australia. C. In 10 years, Australia's population reduced by half. The key word here is not. The question gives 2 correct statements, but we're looking for the statement that is not correct. If we look at page 8 in Our Common Bond, we see that the text mentions the 1851 gold rush and that many Chinese people arrived at this time. So we know not to select answers A or B because they are correct facts. The question is asking us to select the answer that is not correct. We know that the answer must be C, but why? Answer C says that in 10 years, Australia's population reduced by half. To reduce by half is to make something 50% smaller. The text says that in 10 years, Australia's population more than doubled. To double something is to make something twice as big. Answer C is incorrect because it says that Australia's population got smaller during the gold rush, whereas it actually got much bigger. And remember, in this question, we have to select the question that does not describe the gold rush in colonial Australia. So the answer is C. Be careful of these types of questions where you have to choose the wrong answer. They can be very confusing. Question 6. When did the separate colonies join together to become the nation of Australia? A. 1601, B. 1901, C. 2001. Page 9 in Our Common Bond says, in 1901, the separate colonies were united into a federation of states called the Commonwealth of Australia. So the answer is B. The separate colonies joined together to become the nation of Australia in 1901. Question 7. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, Which migrants did the Australian government encourage to settle here? A. The South Sudanese. B. The Brazilians. C. The British. Remember, a century is a period of 100 years. So the first half of a century is about 50 years. The 20th century was the 1900s. So this question is asking about the time period between around 1900 and 1950. Page 9 in Our Common Bond says, there were programs to actively encourage British migrants to settle here, and many did. So the answer is C. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, the Australian government encouraged the British to settle here. Question 8. In recent years, our migration and refugee programs have brought people to Australia from all over the world. Why do people move to Australia? A. To join family. B. To make a new life. C. To escape poverty, war, or persecution. D. All of the above are correct. Page 9 in Our Common Bond says, people have come here to join family, to make a new life, or to escape poverty, war, or persecution. So answers A, B, and C are all true. All of these are reasons that people may move to Australia. So we need to choose answer D. All of the above are correct. Question 9. Why is it important for people living in Australia to learn English? A. Only native English speakers can become Australian citizens. B. English is the only language spoken in Australian communities. C. Speaking English helps people get an education and a job. Page 9 in Our Common Bond says, communicating in English is important for making the most of living and working in Australia. We know that answers A and B are not true because Australia is a multicultural nation where many different languages are spoken and valued. In Australia, we celebrate the diversity of all of Australia's people. Answer C, speaking English helps people get an education and a job, is correct because using one national language to communicate helps everyone to participate in society. You are likely to live a more prosperous and fulfilling life in Australia if you are able to speak English well enough to study and work in English. Question 10. Which Australian city is both a national and territory capital? A. Sydney. B. Melbourne. C. Canberra. Pages 10 and 11 in Our Common Bond say that Sydney is the state capital of New South Wales and Melbourne is the state capital of Victoria. So answers A and B are not correct. Canberra is the capital of the Australian Capital Territory, as well as the capital of Australia. So answer C is correct. Question 11. In which Australian state would you find Cradle Mountain, Port Arthur, and the Bay of Fires? A. Western Australia. B. Brisbane. C. Tasmania. If we look at page 11 in Our Common Bond, we can see that Western Australia is known for the Ningaloo Coast, Margaret River, and the Kimberley region. So we know that A, Western Australia, isn't the answer. Brisbane is a city, not a state, so we know that B is not the answer. Tasmanian icons include Cradle Mountain, Port Arthur, and the Bay of Fires. So C, Tasmania is the correct answer. Question 12. Who can deliver a welcome to country? A, anyone that lives on the land. B, an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander custodian of the land. C, a master of ceremonies at an event on the land. Page 12 in Our Common Bond says that a welcome to country is a cultural practice performed by an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander custodian of the local region. So answer B is correct. Only an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander custodian of the land can deliver a welcome to country. Question 13. An acknowledgement of country. A, is an opportunity to recognize that the gathering is on Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander land. B, can be delivered by anyone. C, both answers A and B are correct. Page 12 in Our Common Bond says that an acknowledgement of country is an opportunity to recognize that the gathering is on Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander land, and anyone can deliver an acknowledgement of country. So the answer is C. Both answers A and B are correct. Another tricky question. Make sure to read all parts of the question before you select your answer. Question 14. Australia Day is a public holiday that celebrates A, the achievement of the 8-hour working day for Australian workers. B, the anniversary of the arrival of the First Fleet from Great Britain in 1788. C, the sacrifice of all Australians who served and died in wars, conflicts, and peacekeeping operations. We can see that page 13 in Our Common Bond says that Australia Day is the anniversary of the arrival of the First Fleet from Great Britain in 1788. So the answer is B. Australia Day is a public holiday that celebrates the anniversary of the First Fleet from Great Britain in 1788. Question 15. On Anzac Day, we remember A, the arrival of the First Fleet from Great Britain. B, the creation of an independent Australian nation. C, all Australians who have fought and died in wars. Page 13 in Our Common Bond says that Anzac Day is a solemn day when we remember the sacrifice of all Australians who served and died in wars, conflicts, and peacekeeping operations. So the answer is C. On Anzac Day, we remember all Australians who have fought and died in wars. Question 16. On which public holiday does the Prime Minister announce the Australian of the Year awards in Canberra? A, New Year's Day. B, Australia Day. C, Anzac Day. Page 13 in Our Common Bond says that during Australia Day celebrations, the Prime Minister announces the Australian of the Year awards in Canberra. So the answer is B. On Australia Day, the Prime Minister announces the Australian of the Year awards in Canberra. Question 17. What is the name of the group of stars that can be seen in the southern sky and is found on the Australian flag? A, the Southern Cross. B, the 12 Apostles. C, the Golden Wattle. Page 14 in Our Common Bond says that the Southern Cross on the right is a group of stars that can be seen in the southern sky. So the answer is A. The The Southern Cross is the group of stars that can be seen in the southern sky and is found on the Australian flag. Question 18. What are the colors of the Australian Aboriginal flag? A. Green, blue, black, and white. B. Blue, white, and red. C. Black, red, and yellow. We can see that page 14 in Our Common Bond says that the Australian Aboriginal flag is black, red, and yellow. So the answer is C. The colors of the Australian Aboriginal flag are black, red, and yellow. Question 19. The two animals found on the Commonwealth coat of arms are A. The kangaroo and the koala, B. The kangaroo and the echidna, C. The kangaroo and the emu. Page 15 in Our Common Bond says, a kangaroo and an emu support the shield on each side. So the answer is C. The two animals found on the Commonwealth coat of arms are the kangaroo and the emu. Neither of these animals can move backward. They symbolize Australia as a nation that always moves forward. Question 20. What is the title of the Australian national anthem? A. God Save the Queen. B. Waltzing Matilda. C. Advance Australia Fair. Answer A. God Save the Queen is the national anthem used in Great Britain. So the answer isn't A. Answer B. Waltzing Matilda is a famous Australian folk song, but it is not the official Australian anthem. So the answer isn't B. Answer C. Advance Australia Fair is the title of the Australian national anthem. The song celebrates Australia's natural beauty and expresses a strong sense of national pride and loyalty to Australia. The national anthem is found on page 16 in Our Common Bond. Remember to practice the national anthem so that you can sing it loudly and proudly at your citizenship ceremony. How did you go with the practice test questions? Remember that you can go back and re-watch any of the videos on this channel to help you review and prepare for the citizenship test. That's it for today's episode. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments section. I'll do my best to help in any way I can. If you found this video helpful, please click on subscribe and like to help me grow this channel. This will also help you see when new episodes are ready to watch. See you in the next episode.